pipeline of drugs flowing from Mexico to Chicago.
And the pantheon of drug prosecution.
Live to talk about it.
Certainly, the Flores brothers cooperating and providing all.
What if the shadow that followed El Chapo was a whole brother? A ghost in the mountains who never made a name on a Forbes list, but built an empire of his own until the FBI finally closed in. In the rugged hills of Sinaloa, a tiny village called La Tuna, a boy named Aureliano Guzman Loera grew up in the same golden triangle that would become a drug-producing paradise. He learned to plant opium and marijuana before cartels turned them into billion-dollar machines. Now, after decades of staying in the shadows, the silent brother who once outmaneuvered law enforcement is facing the long arm of the U.S. justice system. In this video, we peel back the layers of Aureliano's mysterious rise, the fortune he may still control, and the chilling moment the FBI finally brought him to justice. Stay tuned. This is the story of El Chapo's brother, the last old-school capo standing, and his inevitable goodbye forever. You know the name El Chapo, the tunnels carved into the earth, the daring prison break that made headlines worldwide, the billion-dollar empire that sent ripples through law enforcement circles. But what if I told you that behind that notorious figure there sits another shadow? An older brother whose wealth and cunning might eclipse even the legend of the infamous Cartel King. Meet Aureliano Guzman Loera, a name that never makes the Forbes list, yet in the rugged highlands of Sinaloa, he is whispered as the ghost of the mountains, the silent architect of power built in the dark corners of the drug world. In the hills of La Tuna, a modest farming village tucked into the cradle of the Golden Triangle, where Sinaloa, Durango, and Chihuahua converge, Aureliano was born into a life of hard work and humble beginnings. His parents, Alio and Maria Consuel, raised him and his younger brother amidst the scent of earth and the scent of opium poppies. In that region, cultivating narcotics was not an illicit pastime. It was a means of survival, a trade passed down through generations that blended seamlessly with corn and beans on a family plot. Aureliano learned to pick the buds of the poppy at a tender age, his fingers deft and his mind already calculating how a handful of seeds could grow into an empire. But while the world would later know of the flamboyant, audacious rise of the younger brother, El Chapo, Aureliano charted a different path. Where El Chapo chased fame and notoriety, he was a man of quiet deliberation. He stayed in the mountains, where the Sierra's winding trails offered a haven for clandestine movements. He moved slowly, methodically, never courting the flash that came with headlines. He let the cartels grow around him, and yet he was always a shadow, a silent presence within the larger structure. The 1990s were a turning point for the Sinaloa cartel, as El Chapo's reputation as a fearless operator grew. He left his village, joined the Guadalajara cartel, and soon carved his own destiny, moving from one daring escape to another. Behind the scenes, Aureliano was building a foundation that would one day rival even the flashy empire of his brother. His reputation in Sinaloa was that of an introverted, dependable operator, an unsung hero who was trusted by the very man who would become the face of the cartel's rise. In the early 2000s, while El Chapo was at the helm, orchestrating high-profile heists and orchestrating bold prison breaks, Aureliano's work was the quiet backbone. He kept his operations low profile, a necessity in a region where the line between legitimacy and criminality was as thin as the thin air at altitude. He was respected in the inner circles, even if he never sought the spotlight. He earned the trust of the younger brother, and that trust would prove essential when the tide shifted. 2015 was a watershed year. The world watched as El Chapo, after a daring escape from a maximum security prison, stepped back into the shadows. In a dramatic turn, he chose to hand over control of the cartel's operations to a select group of trusted figures, his sons, Damaso Lopez and Aureliano. In a sealed letter, he conferred upon his brother a role that was both symbolic and strategic, ensuring that the cartel would survive even as law enforcement intensified pressure. That letter marked Aureliano's transformation from a quiet operator into a co-leader of one of the most powerful drug networks in the world. He was no longer just a silent partner. He was a commander in his own right, running the empire from the depths of the Sinaloa Mountains. The transition was not abrupt. It unfolded gradually. Aureliano, having cultivated deep ties in the Sierra, already possessed a network of loyal foot soldiers, a small but formidable militia he called Gente del Guano, the Guano tribe. These were not mere henchmen. They were soldiers who knew every hidden path, every rock slide that could signal a raid. Their allegiance was not to a flashy facade, but to the stability of a system built on the mountain's geography and on old-school loyalty. When the Mexican government stepped up its operations, patrols, aerial sweeps, relentless raids, Aureliano's approach stayed the same. Avoid detection, use knowledge of the terrain, and rely on a network that had no phone lines or modern technology. The result was a pattern of thwarted attempts. Each operation ended the same way. The search was exhausted, but Aureliano was gone, the mountain swallowing the echo of the pursuit. Locals whispered that he was impossible to catch, that his understanding of the Sierra's veins was unparalleled. He used only basic tools, a compass, a map drawn in his mind, and a network that ran deeper than any law enforcement could penetrate. He saw himself as the rightful heir to the cartel's legacy. Not the sons, not the new generation that chased new technologies and flashy brands, but he, the seasoned, old-school king of the mountains. The younger generation had the charisma, the risk-takers that captured the public's imagination. But Aureliano's experience, his knowledge of how to survive and thrive in a hostile environment, made him the natural leader when El Chapo was finally captured. The moment of capture was a turning point. The cartel could not survive under the hands of the inexperienced. Aureliano stepped into the void, taking control of the cartel's heartland in Badira, the region where the Guzman family's roots ran deep. There he earned the nickname El Señor de Badira, a title that resonated through the mountains as he became the protector and ruler of the cartel's core operations. His power base was vast. He had a private army in the Sierra, controlling production of heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamine, and marijuana. He wielded influence over key smuggling routes into the United States, especially through Arizona, a corridor that had become increasingly lucrative as U.S. demand grew.
Once had a bounty on his head, placed there by the drug lord himself.
With the exception of Osama bin Laden, I think
Mexican documents leaked that confirmed his control over these routes, and U.S. prosecutors described his operation as an extensive drug trafficking network that spanned borders, a testament to the depth and breadth of his influence. With El Chapo's fall, Aureliano's role transcended mere survival. He became the glue that held the cartel together. While his younger brother's flamboyant legend had taken the spotlight, the quieter but no less critical role of the mountain boss became clear. He ensured that the cartel's operations ran smoothly, that the distribution chains remained intact, and that the profits continued to flow. In doing so, he became an essential figure, the silent hand that kept the system from fracturing. People who picture the wealth of a drug lord imagine mansions, luxury cars, extravagant parties, and an unending stream of opulence. Aureliano, however, rewrites that narrative. His wealth is not loud. It is calculated, discreet, and buried deep in the Sierra Madre. He has never been arrested. He has never been subjected to property seizures. His assets remain intact, his fortune hidden behind layers of real estate, agricultural ventures, and perhaps more subtle, less visible investments. The financial scale of his wealth is staggering. While estimates vary, reports suggest his personal fortune could range between $4 and $10 billion. In a world where a drug kingpin's wealth is measured by flash, Aureliano's wealth is measured in stability and discretion. His financial empire is built on a diversified portfolio, land holdings, small businesses, perhaps legitimate enterprises that provide a cover for illicit activities. His real estate in remote parts of Sinaloa remains untouched because the local authorities never had concrete evidence linking him to criminal activity, and the mountains provided the perfect shield. He embodies the archetype of an old-school capo who has survived the shifting tides of law enforcement, technology, and public scrutiny. In an era where digital footprints are ubiquitous, his reliance on age-old tactics, no cell phones, no surveillance tech, no data trails, has kept him ahead of the curve. His operations run on a network of human intelligence, on the deep trust of local communities, and on the fear that he can strike at any moment. The people of the Sierra, once wary, now see him as a powerful figure who can protect their interests and keep the area from falling into chaos. His legacy is not measured solely in the number of drugs trafficked, but in the resilience of the cartel structure under his stewardship. The cartel's operations are more efficient now, less exposed, and more adaptable. He has kept the flow of narcotics steady, maintained the flow of money, and ensured that the organization remains a force in the global drug trade. In closing, Arellano's story is one of quiet dominance. While El Chapo's name will forever echo in headlines for his daring escapes and flamboyant operations, Arellano's name will remain in the whispered stories of the mountains, a testament to the power of patience, knowledge, and strategic restraint. He has turned the very landscape that once sustained simple farmers into a fortress that safeguards one of the most powerful drug empires in history. In the end, the mountain boss stands as a reminder that in the world of shadows, sometimes the most enduring power comes not from the roar of the spotlight, but from the steady pulse beneath the earth. He has never sat in a cell or faced a judge's gavel. He has never needed to hide behind a chain of custody or a court-ordered search. For more than 30 years, the mountains have been his constant witnesses. Every day, as dawn breaks over the jagged peaks of the Sierra Madre, the same quiet rhythm begins. The hiss of a hidden pipeline, the rustle of a convoy of 4x4s, the low thrum of a satellite radio channel broadcasting clandestine orders. The roads that crisscross the high Sierras, steep, dirt, almost impossible for any army to patrol, are mapped with a precision that mirrors the cartographic expertise of a seasoned military commander. Here, in the cradle of the Golden Triangle, the mountain boss has built an empire that operates on 3 essential pillars: control, taxation, and protection. Control is exercised through a network of fortified ranches that serve as both operational hubs and safe houses. Take La Lagunita, a modest ranch that from the air appears as a cluster of adobe structures nestled into a rocky slope. Yet, within its perimeter lie custom-armored 4x4 trucks, a discreet helipad, and a bunker stocked with imported whiskey and gourmet supplies that rival any hotel in the city. The ranch is the nerve center of a system that threads together dozens of small outposts, each a mile or two away, connected by hidden tunnels that cut through limestone and basalt. These tunnels are not merely escape routes. They are arteries that carry the lifeblood of the cartel: heroin, marijuana, cocaine, and the more specialized fentanyl routes through the night, invisible to any satellite feed or surveillance camera. Taxation is the next pillar. Every shipment that passes through the mountainous corridor is subject to a steep levy. The mountain boss's men count each bag, each crate, each barrel of contraband with the same meticulousness one would find in a high-end accounting office. These taxes are paid in cash, but often the ledger is updated in a code only the cartel's top brass understand. This system ensures a steady flow of liquid capital that can be siphoned into legitimate enterprises, real estate in urban centers, agricultural ventures in the valleys, and even shell corporations that masquerade as family businesses. The money keeps moving through a labyrinth of accounts that make it impossible for authorities to trace back to the mountain's heart. Protection is perhaps the most visible manifestation of his power. For the people of the Sierra, the mountain boss is more than a drug lord. He is a patron. He funds roads that cut through the mountains, enabling farmers to transport their produce to market. He sponsors local festivals, distributes cash to families during harvest season, and provides a sense of security that extends beyond the petty criminal who might otherwise threaten their livelihoods. When the military or federal police attempt to patrol a route, the locals, loyal by necessity and by gratitude, often whisper warnings or reroute their own small arms convoys to intercept the authorities. The mountain boss's presence is felt more through the quiet assurance of a well-fed community than through the roar of a gunfight. These pillars have been tested and reinforced by the internal divisions that have fractured the Sinaloa cartel over the past decade. The mountain boss has allied himself with Los Chapitos, the sons of the late Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, and with the powerful forces of the CJNG. Together, they have mounted a campaign against rivals who seek to control the same opium fields and trafficking routes that run through the High Sierra. The fiercest of these rivals is La Mayiza, a faction loyal to El Mio Zambada. In 2024, as La Mayiza moved its eyes toward Badiragueto and the surrounding ridges, the mountain boss's men issued a message that would echo in the valleys. "We do not seek fights, but we will defend our land. Whoever tries to take our ground will face the full force of our retaliation."
Watch that federal agents arrested and flipped twin brothers from Chicago's Little Village neighborhood, Pedro and Margarita.
Those words were not mere threat. They were backed by heavy fire, a display of armored vehicles, and an arsenal that would make any conventional military unit tremble. The escalation reached a public climax when a leaked video surfaced showing an attempt by Layita to bomb the house of the Guzman family in Badira. The bomb, meant to strike a home believed to belong to both El Chapo and the mountain boss's mother, missed its target and detonated in the yard instead. The failure was loud and humiliating, yet it made one thing clear. The war between these factions is no longer a shadowy whisper. It is a living, breathing conflict that spills onto the streets, onto the highways, onto the very air that fills the Sierra. Despite this volatility, the mountain boss remains untroubled. The United States has placed a $5 million bounty on his head, but the mountain's terrain is an impenetrable fortress. Mexican officials accuse him of fueling violence across the state, yet they cannot produce a single concrete piece of evidence. The mountain boss's operations have been designed to avoid the very tools law enforcement now relies upon: cell phones, digital surveillance, data trails. Instead, he employs a network of human intelligence, trusted messengers, community informants, and a cadre of loyal guards known as R8, who move like shadows through the hills. In a recent raid on a camp in Durango, Mexican federal police discovered the men of R8, but the mountain boss himself was not there. The men seized a few of the convoy trucks and a small stash of cash, but the larger operation remained untouched. Those who follow his code know that the mountain boss's men are always one step ahead. They anticipate the patterns of patrol, the timings of checkpoints, the very rhythms of the military's operations, and adjust their routes accordingly. A well-placed convoy can slip past a border patrol, cross a bridge at night, and vanish into the darkness, all while leaving no digital trace. Family dynamics add a layer of intrigue to his story. The mountain boss's son, El Juanito, has been rumored to carry on the family's legacy. His younger days were marked by the same sense of duty and calculation that defines his father's rule. In 2021, an incident involving El Juanito's personal convoy, a series of armored vehicles, became the subject of a small media report. Though the details were scarce, the narrative that emerged was that El Juanito had a reputation for being ruthless. Yet, he is also known for being a keen businessman, adept at negotiating deals that benefit both his family and the larger cartel. While the mountain boss's influence is felt in every aspect of the Sierra's life, the presence of his son in the inner circles ensures that the next generation is prepared to carry the mantle. The mountain boss's strategic brilliance is further highlighted by his alliance with Los Chapitos and the CJNG. These partnerships are not merely tactical, they are symbolic. Los Chapitos represent the legacy of the Guzman family, a name that has become synonymous with the Sinaloa cartel's historic dominance. The CJNG, meanwhile, brings an aggressive, expansionist energy that complements the mountain boss's more conservative, calculated approach. Together, they form a coalition that has managed to maintain control over the Golden Triangle's drug routes while simultaneously expanding their footprint into new markets and diversifying their revenue streams. This coalition has also managed to keep the mountain boss out of the crosshairs of the federal agencies that have devoted millions of dollars to dismantling the Sinaloa cartel. The mountain's infrastructure is a maze of bunkers, tunnels, and safe houses. Each bunker is equipped with its own independent power source, a diesel generator that can run for weeks on a single load of fuel, ensuring that even if a convoy is ambushed, the cartel's members can continue to operate. The tunnels that crisscross the mountains are built with the same precision as a military engineer's blueprint, enabling them to bypass roads, bridges, and checkpoints with ease. In this way, the mountain boss's men have turned the Sierra into a living, breathing fortress that resists infiltration by conventional force. The mountain boss's ability to avoid law enforcement's attention is not just due to the terrain. It also stems from his deep understanding of the human element. He places a premium on personal loyalty and uses the cultural norms of the Sierra to his advantage. The local communities, which are accustomed to living in isolation and in the face of harsh environmental conditions, have learned to trust one man who, paradoxically, brings them stability. In turn, they are willing to sacrifice personal safety to protect their way of life. This reciprocal relationship ensures that the mountain boss's men are never outnumbered on the ground, and that any attempt to apprehend them would likely be met with local resistance. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the mountain boss's rule is his invisibility. The FBI has spent countless hours combing through satellite imagery, tracking cell phone signals, and analyzing financial data. Yet every approach has hit a wall. The mountain's terrain acts as a natural shield, absorbing the attempts of law enforcement to gather evidence. When authorities do catch a glimpse of an operation, an armored convoy, a bunker, a 4x4 vehicle, they find themselves looking at a system that is designed to be undetectable. No matter how sophisticated the technology, the mountain boss's operations are a step ahead. A game of cat and mouse played on a stage too vast for any single agency to control. His success is not solely due to the mountains. It is also a testament to his strategic use of alliances, his meticulous taxation system, and his unparalleled ability to protect those who live in his domain. While others in the drug trade are forced into prison or meet a violent end, he remains untouchable. The bounty money is a tempting lure for those who cannot solve the puzzle, yet the mountain boss's rule has already outlasted the entire cartel's internal disputes and the aggressive campaigns of rival factions. Even the fierce bomb attempt by Layita could not shake the foundation he has built. For the rest of his life, the mountain boss will continue to patrol the high Sierras, to levy taxes on contraband, to protect his people, and to ensure that the flow of money and drugs remains unbroken. The FBI's efforts to capture him may persist for years, but the mountain's silence will always be louder than any gunfire. He remains a ghost in the mountains, a presence felt through the sturdy roads he builds, the taxes he collects, and the protection he offers to a community that owes him more than mere fear. In the end, the quiet dominance he maintains in the Sierra remains a testament to a man who built an empire not on flash and spectacle, but on strategy, loyalty, and the unbreakable bonds of the high mountain life.